Bully girls dumped a bucket of rotten liquid on the new girl's head in front of the whole class. They had no idea who she really was. Maya Harlow kept her head down as she navigated the crowded hallways of Westlake High School. At 15, she was small for her age, barely 5 feet tall with a slight frame that made her look even younger. Her olive skin was dotted with freckles across her nose, and her curly black hair was usually pulled back in a messy ponytail. She'd transferred to Westlake just 3 weeks ago, after her father's job had relocated them from across the country, and the transition hadn't been easy. Most new students tried to blend in, but Maya stood out despite her efforts not to. She dressed differently, preferring vintage clothes and colorful scarves to the trendy outfits that dominated Westlake's hallways. She spoke softly, with a slight stutter when she got nervous, which was often, and worst of all, she had made the mistake of correcting Brandon Miller, Westlake's self-appointed king of the junior class, on the first day when he'd gotten an answer wrong in AP history. "It was actually 1863, not 1865, she had said quietly, not realizing the unspoken rule. Nobody corrected Brandon Miller, not if they wanted to survive at Westlake. What nobody at Westlake knew was that behind Maya's quiet demeanor lay an extraordinary talent. Back at her old school, she'd been known as an art prodigy. Her paintings had won national competitions, and she'd even been featured in several prestigious youth exhibitions. Her technique was remarkable for someone her age, particularly her control over color and composition. She could manipulate paint in ways that professional artists twice her age couldn't master. But here at Westlake, she kept that part of herself hidden. New school, new start. She didn't want to stand out any more than she already did. Brandon Miller was a 6-foot-tall junior with perfectly styled blonde hair and the kind of confident swagger that came from being both wealthy and popular. His father owned half the real estate in town, including the mall where most Westlake students spent their weekends. Alongside him were his constant companions, Trent Davis, a muscular lacrosse player with a perpetual smirk, and Alyssa Chambers, a sharp-tongued girl with immaculate makeup who documented everything on social media. "Look who it is," Brandon would announce loudly whenever Maya appeared in the cafeteria. "It's Professor Know-It-All." The first week, Maya had tried ignoring them. The second week, she'd tried taking different routes to class and eating lunch in empty classrooms. By the third week, they'd made it their mission to find new ways to torment her. Westlake High was a sprawling campus of red brick buildings connected by covered walkways. The main building housed most academic classes, while the East Wing contained specialized rooms for arts, music, and sciences. The cafeteria was a large open space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the football field. Beautiful architecture that did nothing to make lunchtime less dreadful for Maya. "Why don't you fight back?" her new friend Zoe had asked after witnessing Brandon accidentally knock Maya's lunch tray to the floor for the second time that week. Maya had simply shrugged. "It's not worth it." But the truth was more complicated. At her previous school, Maya had learned the hard way that standing up to bullies could make things worse. An incident in 8th grade had escalated when she'd confronted a girl who'd been spreading rumors about her. The girl and her friends had retaliated by vandalizing one of Maya's paintings that had been displayed in the school gallery. The memory still stung, months of work destroyed in an act of petty revenge. Never let them see what matters to you, she had decided then. Never give them that power. So at Westlake, Maya kept her art supplies hidden in her locker, sketched only at home, and avoided the art room during school hours, even though her fingers itched to hold a brush again. The bullying started small: snickers when she spoke in, class accidental shoves in the hallway, whispered comments about her clothes. But it escalated quickly. In the hallway between classes, Brandon stuck out his foot as she passed. "Oops, didn't see you there, Professor," he laughed as she sprawled across the floor, her books scattering. In gym class, Alyssa made sure Maya was the last one picked for teams, standing alone as others were chosen. "Maybe if you weren't such a freak, people would want you on their team," she'd say loud enough for everyone to hear. During lunch, they'd mimic her stutter whenever she spoke. Did you hear what the professor said?" Trent would mock, earning laughs from those around him. Maya endured it all silently, counting down the days until summer vacation, keeping her head down. But on a rainy Tuesday in late April, everything changed. Maya had arrived early to her advanced art class, the one indulgence she'd allowed herself at Westlake. It was the one place she felt she could breathe. The art teacher, Ms. Winters, had immediately recognized Maya's talent and had been encouraging her to express herself more. Today they were starting a new project, a self-portrait that would be entered in the state high school art competition. Maya had set up her easel in the corner, away from the door, carefully arranging her paints. She was excited about this project She'd been sketching ideas for it at home for days. This would be her first real painting since arriving at Westlake. She didn't notice Brandon, Trent, and Alyssa peering through the classroom door window. She didn't see them whispering and laughing as they watched her meticulously preparing her workspace. She didn't hear them plotting as they noticed how carefully she was handling her materials, how her face lit up as she mixed colors on her palette. They had finally found what mattered to her. The classroom slowly filled as other students arrived. Ms. Winters began the class by explaining the self-portrait assignment. Maya listened intently, already visualizing the piece she would create. For the first time in weeks, she felt a spark of genuine happiness. Halfway through the class, Ms. Winters stepped out briefly to retrieve additional supplies from the storage room. That's when it happened. Brandon nodded to Trent, who created a distraction at the front of the class by knocking over an easel. As everyone turned to look, Brandon grabbed a large bucket of red paint from the supply table. Maya was focused on her preliminary sketch, completely unaware of what was about to happen. She felt a presence behind her, but before she could turn around, cold wetness crashed over her head. Gasps filled the room as bright red paint poured down Maya's face, soaking her hair, dripping onto her clothes, splashing onto her preliminary sketch. The shock of it froze her in place as the thick liquid oozed down her back and pooled around her feet. "Oops," Brandon said loudly, feigning innocence. "Didn't see you there, Professor. Red is definitely your color, though." Alyssa already had her phone out, recording Maya's humiliation as laughter erupted around the room. "This is so going viral," she announced gleefully. Maya sat perfectly still, red paint dripping from her chin onto the ruined canvas before her. Something inside her, something that had been coiling tighter and tighter over the past weeks, suddenly snapped. She stood up slowly. Paint ran down her face, obscuring her vision, but she didn't bother wiping it away. The laughter in the room gradually died down as students noticed her expression, or rather, the complete lack of expression. Her face was eerily calm under the mask of red. Maya looked directly at Brandon, then at the palette knife she'd been using to mix colors. It was small but sharp, designed to scrape and manipulate thick paint. She picked it up, examining it thoughtfully. The room went completely silent. For a brief, terrible moment, everyone thought she might lunge at Brandon with it. Instead, she smiled, a small, cold smile that didn't reach her eyes, and placed the knife carefully back on her table. Without a word, she walked out of the classroom, leaving red footprints in her wake. In the bathroom, Maya methodically cleaned as much paint from her skin and hair as she could. The cold water helped clear her thoughts as she stared at her reflection. Streaks of red still visible despite her efforts, she made a decision. No more hiding, no more running, no more silent suffering. She had been afraid to show her true self at Westlake, afraid that her talent would make her more of a target. But now she realized they had targeted her anyway. The only person she was protecting by hiding was them. That evening, Maya locked herself in her bedroom and pulled out the art supplies she'd kept hidden since moving, professional-grade materials that she hadn't dared to bring to school. For hours, she worked feverishly, channeling all her humiliation, anger, and determination into her art. The next day, Maya didn't go to school, nor the day after. Her parents, concerned about the paint incident but trusting their daughter's judgment, didn't push her to return immediately. "Take the time you need," her father had said, his voice tight with barely controlled anger at what had happened. During those days at home, Maya worked without stopping, barely eating or sleeping. Her parents exchanged worried glances but recognized the focused intensity that had always characterized their daughter's creative process. When Maya finally returned to school the following Monday, she carried a large portfolio case. She walked differently, head high, shoulders back, with a quiet confidence that made students turn to look as she passed. The red had been washed from her hair, but there was something new in her eyes, a fire that hadn't been there before. Brandon spotted her in the hallway and nudged Trent. "Look who's back," he sneered. "Did you enjoy your beauty treatment, Professor? Red is definitely your color." Maya smiled at him. Not the frightened, uncertain smile of before, but something altogether different. "Actually, Brandon, I wanted to thank you," she said clearly, with no trace of a stutter. "You inspired me." Brandon blinked, thrown off by her response. "What are you talking about, freak?" "You'll see," she replied, continuing down the hallway. Throughout the day, whispers followed Maya. The video of the paint incident had indeed gone viral within the school, just as Alyssa had promised. But Maya seemed impervious to the stares and murmurs. During classes, she paid attention and participated as usual, but there was a new edge to her voice, a confidence that made teachers take notice. After school, Maya headed directly to the art room. Ms. Winters was there, organizing supplies. The teacher looked up with surprise and concern. Maya, I'm so sorry about what happened. I've spoken with the principal, and Brandon has detention for 2 weeks, but I know that doesn't... It's okay, Ms. Winters, Maya interrupted gently. Actually, I was wondering if I could still participate in the state competition. Of course, Ms. Winters replied, clearly relieved by Maya's composure. The deadline isn't for another week. Good, Maya said, unzipping her portfolio, because I've finished my piece. She carefully removed a large canvas and placed it on an easel. Ms. Winters gasped. The painting was extraordinary, a self-portrait unlike any the teacher had seen from a high school student. Maya had painted herself with red paint pouring over her head, but the paint transformed as it flowed down, becoming a magnificent cape of crimson that swirled around her figure. Her painted self stood tall and powerful, eyes fierce and challenging, surrounded by shadowy figures that seemed to shrink away from her radiance. The technical skill was breathtaking, the way light played on the liquid paint, the expression in her own eyes, the powerful composition that drew the viewer's gaze inexorably to her face. Maya, Ms. Winters whispered, This is masterful. I've never seen anything like it from someone your age. I want it displayed, Maya said firmly, in the main hallway before the competition. Ms. Winters nodded slowly. I'll speak to Principal Garcia immediately. Work of this caliber deserves recognition. The next morning, Maya arrived at school to find her painting installed in a prominent display case in the main hallway, with a small placard identifying it as her work and announcing its entry in the state competition. Students clustered around it, pointing and whispering. Brandon, Trent, and Alyssa pushed their way through the crowd, curious about what was causing the commotion. When Brandon saw the painting, his face drained of color. There in vivid detail was the scene of his bullying, transformed into something powerful and accusatory. Though the shadowy figures weren't clearly identifiable as specific students, anyone who had witnessed or heard about the incident would understand exactly what and who the painting depicted. She can't do that, he hissed to Trent. She's making me look like the bad guy. Alyssa pulled out her phone to take a photo, but slowly lowered it again. It's actually amazing, she admitted reluctantly. How did she do that in just a few days? Word spread quickly throughout the school. Teachers stopped to admire the painting, praising its technical brilliance and emotional impact. Several students who had previously ignored Maya's bullying now approached her between classes, complimenting her work and asking about her techniques. Maya accepted their praise graciously, but reserved genuine warmth for Zoe and a few others, who had shown her kindness from the beginning. The rest she treated with polite detachment, neither seeking their approval nor showing resentment for their previous indifference. Brandon attempted to complain to Principal Garcia, claiming the painting was a form of bullying against him. The principal, who had seen the viral video of the paint incident, was unmoved. The painting doesn't identify you by name or likeness, Brandon, Principal Garcia pointed out. If you recognize yourself in those shadowy figures, perhaps that's something you should reflect on. By lunchtime, the dynamics had noticeably shifted. Maya sat with Zoe as usual, but their table gradually filled with other students eager to talk about her art. From across the cafeteria, Brandon, Trent, and Alyssa watched, their usual table conspicuously emptier than normal. This is ridiculous, Brandon muttered. Everyone's acting like she's some kind of celebrity now just because she can paint. Maybe we should just leave her alone for a while, Trent suggested, uncomfortably aware of the glances being directed their way. No way, Brandon snapped. She thinks she's won, but this isn't over. After lunch, Brandon cornered Maya at her locker. Nice publicity stunt, he sneered, leaning against the locker next to hers. Enjoy your 15 minutes of fame, Professor. It won't last. Maya calmly placed her books in her locker before turning to face him. You know, Brandon, she said quietly so only he could hear, I should thank you properly. Before you dumped that paint on me, I was hiding who I really am. I was afraid to stand out. You freed me from that fear. Brandon's eyes narrowed. Is that supposed to scare me? Not at all, Maya replied. It's supposed to inform you. You see, that painting is just the beginning. I've started a series. A series of what? Paintings. About bullying. About the dynamics of power in high school. About the bystander effect. She smiled slightly. I've been taking photographs as reference material. I have quite a collection of interesting moments involving you and your friends. Very compelling visual stories. Brandon's confident smirk faltered. Nobody would care. The local newspaper already called Ms. Winters about my work, Maya continued, as if he hadn't spoken. They want to do a feature when the series is complete. Apparently, anti-bullying artwork by teenage artists is very newsworthy right now. Your father's name carries a lot of weight in this town, doesn't it? I wonder what he'd think about seeing certain scenes immortalized in paint and featured in the paper he reads every morning. The blood drained from Brandon's face. You wouldn't. I absolutely would, Maya said, her voice still calm but her eyes hard. Art is about truth, Brandon. And the truth is, you're a bully. You hurt people because you can, because no one stops you. But I'm not afraid of you anymore. And I'm done. Being silent, she closed her locker and turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and don't bother trying to intimidate me again or messing with my artwork. Every piece I create is photographed and backed up digitally. Destroy one, and I'll simply make another, possibly even more revealing than the first. She walked away, leaving Brandon standing open-mouthed by her locker. That afternoon in art class, Maya worked on her next piece, a powerful composition showing students averting their eyes as someone fell in a crowded hallway. Though no faces were clearly detailed, the body language and composition told the story effectively. Ms. Winters circulated through the classroom, spending extra time observing Maya's technique and offering occasional suggestions. Brandon, Trent, and Alyssa sat at the far side of the room, subdued and watchful. When Ms. Winters announced that everyone's work would be displayed in the upcoming spring art show, Brandon visibly tensed. After class, Alyssa approached Maya cautiously. That painting in the hallway, she began awkwardly. It's really good. Maya nodded in acknowledgement, but continued cleaning her brushes. Look, Alyssa continued, lowering her voice, the video of what happened, I deleted it, and I told everyone else to delete their copies too. Thank you, Maya said simply, neither warming nor dismissive. I didn't know you could paint like that, Alyssa admitted. If I had known, you would have what? Maya asked, looking up from her brushes. Left me alone? Treated me like a human being? Been kind? Alyssa had the grace to look ashamed. Maybe. That's the problem, Maya said. People shouldn't have to be exceptional to deserve basic respect. Alyssa nodded slowly. I guess you're right. She hesitated, then added, for what it's worth, I'm sorry. The following weeks saw a complete reversal of Maya's position at Westlake. Her painting won first place in the state competition, bringing attention and prestige to the school. Local media covered the story, featuring interviews with Maya about her artistic process and inspiration. She spoke candidly about the bullying she had experienced and how she had channeled that into her art. Brandon, Trent, and Alyssa found themselves increasingly isolated as other students, unwilling to be associated with publicly identified bullies, drifted away from them. Several younger students, emboldened by Maya's example, came forward with their own stories of harassment. Principal Garcia implemented a new anti-bullying initiative featuring prominently displayed artwork from Maya and other students that illustrated the impact of bullying. Maya was invited to speak at a school assembly about using art as a means of empowerment and expression. One afternoon, as Maya was leaving school, she found Brandon waiting by the exit. For a moment she tensed, but his body language wasn't threatening. If anything, he looked uncomfortable. "Can I talk to you?" he asked, his usual arrogance notably absent. Maya hesitated, then nodded. "My dad saw your painting," Brandon said, looking at the ground. "The one in the newspaper. He asked me if I was one of the shadows in the background. I couldn't lie to him." Maya said nothing, waiting. "He was really disappointed," Brandon continued. "Said that's not how he raised me, said I was better than that." He swallowed hard. "The thing is, I'm not sure that's true. I'm not sure I am better than that." "You could be," Maya said quietly. "That's your choice to make." Brandon nodded slowly. "I know this doesn't fix anything, but I'm sorry. For the paint, for everything else too." "Her apology accepted," Maya replied. "What matters now is what you do next." As she walked away, Maya felt a weight lifting from her shoulders. The bullying had left its mark. She would never be the same person she was before coming to Westlake. But the experience had also revealed a strength she hadn't known she possessed. By transforming her pain into art, she had found her voice. By refusing to remain silent, she had changed not only her own life, but potentially the lives of others who would come after her. The shadows that had once seemed so threatening had been exposed for what they truly were, just shadows, powerless in the light of truth. In art class the next day, Maya started a new painting. Not one of the bullying series, but something different. This canvas showed a figure stepping into brightness, paint dripping from their fingertips, creating a path of color behind them. Ms. Winters paused behind her, observing the emerging image. "A new direction?" she asked. Maya nodded, mixing a vibrant blue on her palette. "The past is important," she said, "but I don't want to live there forever. There are other stories I want to tell." As she applied the first strokes of blue to the canvas, Maya felt a sense of possibility opening before her. The bullies had chosen the wrong target. not because she was secretly strong or specially talented, but because their cruelty had ultimately freed her from fear. In trying to diminish her, they had inadvertently helped her discover the full extent of her power. Her brush moved confidently across the canvas, creating something beautiful from blank space, just as she had created something meaningful from her pain. That, Maya realized, was perhaps the most important lesson of all: the power to transform suffering into beauty, silence into voice, isolation into connection. That was a power no bully could ever take away.